All right, so you guys got the chance now to hear all about the regulatory kind of landscape of cannabis and CBD and THC, but now we want to know, how do you get that cannabis-derived product on the shelf? So that is what exactly this next Fireside chat is, kind of taking a little bit of a change in pace and looking at it from a different angle rather than the legal side. So moderating this, we have John Purow, who's counsel at Zuber Lawler. Hi, John.
Hello, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Pleasure to be here. I also want to say that I am a proud member of the Cannabis Beverage Association, an awesome nonprofit. Now, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing our two illustrious panelists, Tracey Mason, who is Chief Executive Officer at House of SAKA, whose wonderful beverages I had the opportunity to try. They're quite delicious. And Megan Klein, founder at Little Saints. I just want to flag up front that Megan has been having a little bit of technical difficulties. So if she drops off at any point, she's totally worth the wait, and she will hop back on as soon as she can. So we're in lieu of doing introductions to our illustrious panelists. Since we have 25 minutes, we want to get straight to the meat, because there's some really interesting stuff to learn. So just as a baseline starter, right, for the audience to kind of understand the perspective that you're speaking from, both of you, I was wondering if you could at least tell us, what products do your company sell, what cannabinoids do they contain, and where are they currently sold?
Who would
Tracey, you want to go first? Sorry.
So as John said, I'm Tracey Mason. I'm the co-founder and CEO of House of SAKA. We make and manufacture the first and only cannabis-infused alcohol-removed wines from Napa Valley. So we really have claimed a stake in the luxury, really the only stake really in the luxury arena for beverages in California, with contracts to expand into other states in the next 6 months. So, and also into Canada in the next 6 months. So it has been quite a ride after 30 years in the wine and spirits industry, joining the cannabis industry in late 2018. And it's been not without its challenges, but like anything else, anything that's challenging, if you can overcome those challenges, there's nothing more rewarding. So that's kind of where we are. Our cannabis-infused beverages are 750 ml. So this is one of our products. This is House of SAKA White, which is alcohol-removed cannabis-infused Napa Valley Chardonnay. Contains 40 milligrams of THC and 5 milligrams of CBD per bottle, so about 8-to-1 per glass. Our biggest seller right now is House of SAKA Spark, which is our single-serve sparkling wine. That's in a 187 ml bottle, and that contains 5 milligrams of mimosa strain-specific live resin. So we try to approach our products as a microdose because we're beverages and we're using a nanoemulsion. The onset effects come on very quickly. And so they act very similar in your body to alcohol, in the fact that you feel the effects within 5 to 15 minutes like you would a glass of wine. So we're really huge proponents of responsible consumption, and beverages are really the best way, I think, to understand what a milligram of THC feels like for you, because you would feel it right away.
Yes, and having personally, tried them, I could attest that they work exactly as Tracey said, and it was quite, pleasant as a wine replacement. Megan, you want to tell the crowd about your current products that you're selling?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for having me. So I sell two different types of products. One is THC infused and one is not. I moved from Chicago to Detroit actually to launch the THC part of my business, which is microdose edibles, similar to what Tracey said about the nano. We use nano THC in our gummies so that they're not going to hit as fast as a beverage, but they hit much faster than a traditional gummy. The onset time is about 10 to 40 minutes, depending on your metabolism and what you've eaten that day. Like the nano that Tracey uses, like it starts absorbing in your mouth. And the distinct thing about the Little Saints products, both the THC gummies, and then the second product is our CBD beverages. We do 8-ounce sleek cans of what we call Plant Magic mocktails. They're a Plant Magic blend of 10 milligrams of nano CBD. our uplifting botanical terpene blend and reishi mushroom extract. Little Saints actually means mushrooms in South America because they bring joy and connection. And so our CBD beverages and our THC gummies both have that same plant magic stack. The gummies also have a blend of they're 2 milligrams of nano THC per gummy. And then in addition, they have the uplifting botanical terpene and reishi mushroom blend. And of course, the CBD beverages are sold all over. The reason I'm having technical difficulties today is because I'm in LA, where we launched the Plant Magic mocktails at Erewhon last weekend.
Congratulations on the launch. So now that we understand, the type of products that you're both selling and where, I mean, just in general, just like the topic of the panel is, I'd be very curious to hear the journey, right, that in which you guys took, products to market. And specifically, be curious to know about the, your own experience and the backgrounds of your team that enabled you to get the products to shelves, because you both have very interesting backgrounds with very specific types of experience. Megan, while your reception is excellent, let's send this one to you first, I guess.
Sure, thanks for that. So my last job was running a national salad dressing and dip brand called Field and Farmer. It's in Whole Foods all over. And as part of that, we also ran a manufacturing business. So I had a long background of understanding how to bring CPG products to market. And before that, I was a lawyer. I still am a lawyer, unfortunately, but I have an FDA. Oh my God, get me, please, start making money. And we have I was our general counsel for our food manufacturing plant. So like the background that I had, I can do co-packing contracts. I can do sort of like FDA stuff. I kind of understand the whole, the legal part of food. And so I've been able to use that to do my own contract work and IP work as I started Little Saints.
Great. Tracey?
Well, Megan, I was going to be a lawyer. And in between college and law school, I was bartending. And one day some guy walked in and said, hey, our wine distributor is hiring. You would be great at that. So I started selling wine and never looked back. So, and according to you, I'm glad I didn't, right? So I spent 30 years in the wine and spirits industry, largely in high-level marketing and innovation roles. And our team is really the only team, I think, really in beverage in the cannabis space that comes from alcohol. So why I think that benefits us is that we are used to functioning in a very, very highly regulated environment. So I think the way that our approach really to how we market our products, not only how we develop, but also how we market them, is very, very much with an eye on self-policing and how can we introduce products into the market that are delicious, but also very responsible in how we're looking at them. So, we say all the time that we make very, very distinct adult beverages for very distinct adults, and there the twain shall meet, right? So I think that's the background that has really helped us get over a number of hurdles in the industry, in that we had the connections in the wine industry to understand and the understanding of the wine industry and the understanding of alcohol removal to really optimize our product quality. So we knew what the wine needed to taste like before we removed the alcohol, and then how we could replace those elements once the alcohol is removed. So I think that gave us a very distinct advantage. And I think just the provenance really of Napa Valley. I live in Napa. Two of our team members live in Napa. And so we're part of the community. So I think it opens up a different conversation as well, in that, there's sort of this rub between wine and cannabis, and I'm part of the Napa Valley Cannabis Association and part of the Cannabis Beverage Association, and can tell you it's a very distinct rub. And so we kind of sit there and say, well, we're actually bringing Napa Valley provenance to the masses all over the world without having to rely on the cannabis side of it, which I think is interesting. So, really, I think we're coming at it from a group of executives that have been functioning very, very strongly in highly regulated environments. And I think that's what's given us a huge advantage.
Got it. So to Megan, to circle back, right? I'm curious to know a little bit more about the step-by-step, right? In terms of developing the CBD beverage. You mentioned the mushrooms that are, part of it. The step-by-step, really, in terms of how you got this on shelves, right? Which is not, an easy thing necessarily to do. So I was curious for a little bit more specifics on that. The journey.
Sure. So my background that I didn't mention before is I was also head of marketing and product development for the Fresh Factory, which is the parent company of Field and Farmer. So I led all of our product development. So we did cold pressed juices, salad dressing, teas. I did a line of CBD infused juices at my old company. So I'm really passionate about creating products with using really clean ingredients, minimal preservatives, and like really premium, fresh, and as local as we can. That was our value system at my old company, and that's what I brought into Little Saints. And so these took me a while. I worked with like a brilliant female food scientist in the Midwest to, we actually started creating THC beverages first, Tracey. And the only reason I never got them to market is because, as many of you may know, in the Midwest, it's impossible to start an independent brand until you have a presence, and it's impossible to get a presence until you can get a co-packer. So that's why I moved to a processor, as we would say in cannabis. That's why I moved to Detroit, because luckily I have a personal relationship with someone who has a processing license in Michigan, and he agreed to take on, which is a very it's a very complicated process for the cannabis industry. So I'll just take my gummies, which are in production. They're in stores in Michigan. So I was using nano cannabis, which is a liquid, which is very difficult to get into a gummy. I was using that because, it's cleaner and it's fast acting and no one wants to wait 2 hours for their edible to hit. Then I was adding a liquid reishi mushroom extract, liquid terpenes. And so I worked with our food scientist to create the formulas, and we went back and forth on those for months, just sort of in her, what we call a bench top, which is what she's doing it in her lab, in her kitchen. And then taking those from bench top to reality is a whole new process that requires tuning in. So I had to, buy a special depositor. I bought, our gummies are mushroom shaped. So I bought custom molds, and then we had to work with our processor to get that formula right. So, I'm really proud of what we created. There's nothing like it. Like, our terpene blend is custom. Our reishi mushroom extract is really pure. We're the first to, kind of put this plant magic into a gummy form, but it takes a long time and a lot of care and a lot of special sourcing. And then the beverages, really quickly, the CBD beverages were the same principle. Luckily, I was able to source the ingredients pretty much from the same place, except for our CBD. And I work with a regular canning operation local in Michigan to create those CBD beverages.
Great, thank you. Tracey, you want to talk to us a little bit about the journey of House of SAKA?
Well, it's been an arduous one. Let's just put it that way. Being in the cannabis industry, especially cannabis beverages, is certainly not for the faint of heart. When we started House of SAKA in late 2018, when we founded the company, we founded it on this idea that we were going to create the world's first luxury cannabis infused wine. And it was a great idea. And we knew how to actually make the product, or at least we were able to figure that part out, because we've been developing beverages in the alcohol space for years as a team. But what we didn't have, and what still is a little shaky in the cannabis space, is that the infrastructure to actually support it. So when I say infrastructure, I mean, who's going to bottle it? Who's going to distribute it? Because, especially for a market like California, even though it's the largest legal cannabis market in the world, that market kind of evolved from either black or gray market or med into adult use. And so the infrastructure, even from a retail point of view, just wasn't in place, and still is not as in place as we'd like it to support infused beverages. So it took we spent about a year in full on R&D, not just about how do we develop the product and work with all of the regulations around packaging that were completely irrelevant to beverage, but yet we were applied to beverage through edibles. But so not only dealing with that, but also trying to find manufacturers and work with manufacturers to educate them on the QC standards that are necessary to handle a wine product, which are very different than seltzers, which are very different than juices. And so we had quite a few fits and starts with different manufacturing partners. We finally landed in a manufacturing partner that now we control basically the manufacturing process. And we don't rely on third party to do that. And that's been really beneficial to us. But I tell you, it is, and then, just getting, you're in this place where you need to produce a lot of product, but then you get killed with storage fees and distribution fees and sampling fees. If I want to buy a sample of a product that I've already paid for it to make, I have to buy it from a dispensary. So the journey to getting from idea, so what we would call in innovation, from concept stage to launch stage, is really, really, really difficult in the cannabis space. So it requires a tremendous amount of fortitude and stick-to-itiveness, I think, to really make it happen. And I think that's why few people are doing it, or people come in and come out of it because the infrastructure is just not there yet. So as we expand into other states, we start first with, can you actually make it? So we're launching into Michigan, we're launching into Canada in the next few months, and we're doing so because those particular manufacturers built the bottling line to suit our products. We're not trying to retrofit in like we've had to do in California. So if I can go off on a little tangent, what's so exciting, I think, for all of us in the beverage space is that huge markets that are coming online now in the Northeast, for example, are coming in with an eye on beverage. So they're saying, beverage will be the future. If you look at it compared to any other packaged goods or consumable goods, packaged beverage is massive, a massive share of space. So they're setting up their stores to be beverage friendly. So we won't have to sort of wedge ourselves in the way that we have in the state of California. And so I think that means huge opportunity for many brands out there, and especially a brand like House of SAKA that carries a provenance with it, which is difficult to do in cannabis because we don't rely on the cannabis itself to carry our provenance. We rely on the wine. And so we can deliver a consistent California product to the world without having to rely on the cannabis side of it.
No, I agree. I'll just add my 2 cents on this, right? With all the news, right, that I cover for, the Cannabis News podcast, it's, beverages is, while it's still a small sector in certain, mature markets like California, it is exponentially growing quickly. And from another panel that I moderated, I think a really interesting point is you think about consumers as the hardcore cannabis users who know what they want and they prefer certain products, and the canna curious. Right. And the Canna curious, which, certain demographics fall into more so than others, beverages play really, really well because, companies like yours have figured out how to make them taste good and the rapid onset, so you don't have that double dose edible issue. So I think that that's really, really, interesting, like you said, and there's such potential for growth as new markets come online and have an eye towards what's working in more mature markets. So, from what both of you said, right, it seems like in terms of the development, there are two large, important focuses. The R&D to get the products right, because there are, just hurdles in terms of putting plant matter and having it taste good in the way that, certainly that you wanted to expect it to taste, with wine and preconceived notions, and then the logistics. And so you touched upon a little bit, Tracey, in terms of like, how do you expand, right? And so I'm just curious to suss out a little bit what you said there. So it's almost like in terms of expanding, you look for the infrastructure first, right? Mm-hmm. So I was curious if you could, and Megan, as you're, expanding, you have CBD and everything, what's it like when you're trying to grow the brand across state lines where you're fenced in, right, by federal illegality? And what are some of the hurdles that you see there? If you could add on to that. Tracey, Megan, you want to go first?
Was that Megan go first? Sure, I'll go first. My phone's still working. Let's make sure.
Make hay with sunshine.
So I would say, for me, I am looking for TH beverages are my baby. I am looking for processors currently now. So of course, what I've learned in Michigan is two things. Number one, I totally agree with Tracey. You've got to look for infrastructure. It's probably easier for Little Saints than it may be for House of SAKA because we are using cans, and they're now like mobile canning operations. There are like many, states that have processors with canning lines. Of course, like Tracey said, I need to look for someone who like takes SOPs and GMPs really seriously, because I'm using a natural preservative and a lot of natural things. Then it needs to be done right, and there needs to be quality controls. The second, the only thing that I would add is also looking at your market. I have a marketing background. Michigan is a tough market to bring a product to. I have the most premium gummies in the state of Michigan. I have a few partners who are, I would say, more high-end dispensaries that are willing to support the product, but no one's done more in-person marketing than I have. I have a little mint green vending trailer. I have done 50 events with her around the Midwest this summer, so I'm always talking to people and trying to get them out to market. And I know we don't have much time, so I'll just say the market, it's very hard. Like you said, the Cana-Curious, I think you've got to look at where the Cana-Curious are already going to dispensaries and where you have to convince them to go into the dispensaries. And so that's what I'm looking at on this sort of next phase of how do I get my THC beverages, or where do I put my THC beverages in new markets?
Tracey, before I pass over to you, and for the lawyers like me who have not managed to get out like Megan has, I have to pass on the CLE code to everyone. The CLE code is, it was fun doing this, I've never done this before. HS, as in high school, HS 0767. I repeat, it's HS 0767. I hope you all got that. And Tracey, to hand it over to you.
So you needed us to expand a little bit about what the process is actually like, or I'm sorry, where were we?
So you said as you're trying to expand, right? So you look at infrastructure. Oh, we have like 1 minute left. I'm just going to turn around and say anything else that you guys think would be helpful to share with the audience in terms of the hurdles to get to market or the challenges going forward. Yeah.
I think that for me, I think that what's most critical about this, or really anytime you're doing something innovative, is you have to be nimble. So know what it is that you want to achieve and be willing to let it go, because you're going to have to make a lot of curves in the road in order to get to where you want to go to. The regulations vary by state to state, so how you label, so you can't optimize your raw materials other than glass, but you can't optimize your labels. You can't optimize, because every state is going to be different in what you can do. So you have to be exceedingly nimble and be ready to fight for what you want to happen. With Cannabis Beverage Association, we were able to pass legislation that allows us not to use opaque packaging, for example. Those things, being part of the conversation with your state legislatures is also super important.
Megan?
Oh, I did. The only thing that I would add is what I'm really passionate about, I'm sure Tracey is too, is just like always having your customer in mind and like it's hard with cannabis, but trying to kind of constantly be incorporating their feedback into your process and making sure that, just keeping them in mind as you expand.
Awesome. Thanks. I think that we are just wrapping up. And obviously, it is an exciting time in beverages. I mean, just look at what Levia in Massachusetts had a nice little acquisition by Air, just to show you one thing, and much to look forward to, because I certainly think beverages, once federal legalization, tips and removes a lot of these obstacles, it's going to be an unbelievable growth at that point too. Thank you to our hosts who may be joining soon, perhaps. My voice will just get higher. Oh, go ahead and close. Oh, okay. I guess we could just leave. Okay. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you all.
On this informative.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.